Definitely, Netanyahu is a big issue here. Being the leader for so many years during the last 20 years, he became prime minister in 1996, and since then he was a prime minister in Israel for 9 years. It's a lot.
Benjamin Netanyahu may not be the prime minister of Israel soon, and how that would change not only relations with Americans, but in the Middle East. He's now on the table for everybody to consider. Some who even believe that despite his love for Israel, a change might not be a bad thing at all. Let's also be joined now by the professor of political science at the University of Pennsylvania to discuss this. Ian Lustick joins us. Professor, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Professor, in your opinion, did the prime minister make a mistake when he came to America and made his statements in front of Congress?
Oh, yes, he definitely made a mistake, and not only but first of all, from his own point of view. I think he realizes that now. He tried to make Iran and his willingness to take an extreme position on this issue the centerpiece of a campaign, only to find that the Israeli people, for the most part, are much more focused on the 17% rise in housing prices that has occurred under his watch. So he's now being eaten alive by his Likud compadres who think that he has led this campaign in a bad direction with that issue.
How could such a veteran politician basically miscalculate so badly?
Well, he is a veteran politician. His best skills, though, are English language speeches to non-Israeli audiences. He doesn't do, and his best issue is the security issue. So when he's speaking in Israel and what is on people's minds is not the security issue, he doesn't have that much traction as you might think. He's also extremely focused on his own personal agenda, his own personal prospects for success. And in the long run, that has led him to eviscerate the political party of the Likud and weaken support for him within it, except perhaps if he's necessary to form a government where those politicians would get some piece of the action.
All right, so looking at the numbers right now, it looks as if, again, that he is failing a little bit, that he is behind in the balloting right now, the last actual polls taken before the Israeli election. So let's assume here for a moment, I know that's dangerous, but let's try this. If Benjamin Netanyahu is no longer the prime minister of Israel, in your opinion, how will it change not only the relationship with America, but what will that do to the relationship with other countries in the Middle East?
It will do a lot. First, let me preface this by saying that I don't think that's going to happen. I think when the dust settles, not only after the election, but after the negotiations, it will take a long time about how to form a government. He is the single most likely person to end up being prime minister. But it is possible that he won't be, and that Herzog will end up being at least the first prime minister. They could take turns. But that will change a good bit, mostly in the tone, and mostly in Israel's relationship with Europe and the United States in terms of how much distress, how much harsh rhetoric Israel is subjected to. There'll be a honeymoon period for that new government, and I believe that another iteration of this seemingly endless hamster wheel peace process will be undertaken. But that will not succeed. I don't believe that unless there's a landslide, which no one, including me, is suggesting, whatever government is formed that does not have Netanyahu at its head will be a weak government, not capable of making decisions that would lead the peace process towards success. So instead, we'll probably see another kind of failure, but not with such an easy target as Netanyahu is at the head of the government.
If you get to that weakened form of government, though, how much danger does that put Israel in with regard to their enemies? And I care to say there's so many of them at this point, but it would seem to be that's an open door for the people who hate Israel to walk in and create more trouble.
Well, I'm not so sure it's that simple. I don't think Israel's security situation is going to be changed much at all by a change in the prime minister. The policies, the balance of power will be more or less the same. I even do not think there'll be a less or a greater chance that Israel would take preemptive action in Lebanon or in Gaza, for example. Certainly, Israel under Netanyahu or anyone else is not going to strike Iran, no matter what you may hear in the rhetoric. So I really don't think that's the issue. On the other hand, politically and diplomatically, Israel will be in a much stronger position because of the extreme rhetoric that Bibi Netanyahu has used that has tended to isolate Israel even from those countries that could feel themselves ready to stand up for Israel at the UN and elsewhere.
Whether it's Netanyahu or someone else then, would this new government, however it's created, would they be less aggressive in going after this American nuclear deal with Iran, or would they be more aggressive? How would it change?
I think they would be less aggressive. Bibi Netanyahu has kind of nailed himself to this issue. He's been talking about it being 1938 now, and Iran is Nazi Germany for the last, 15 years or so. It can't be 1938 forever. It would be like in the 1950s.
Let me interrupt you for just a second there, Professor. Is that part of it, that maybe some of the people, the current generation in Israel, is tired of constantly going back to 1938 and they're looking to move forward?
Yes, I think many Israelis still live under the shadow of the Holocaust. They feel that very deeply, and Netanyahu has used that. But I think most Israelis are feeling that's enough already, especially when the overwhelming majority of Israeli security experts think that Netanyahu is leading the country in a bad direction on this issue, that there are other ways to handle the Iranian challenge, and that Obama's approach may not be such a bad one.
I got about a minute or so left here. There are some people who believe that Benjamin Netanyahu has been the reason why there is no two-state solution. Do you follow with that? And if he disappears and somebody else comes into power, different power base, that maybe that would reopen that door and actually get talks going towards that two-state?
He is not the reason. He's the reason, that is to say, the situation is so frozen, in part because of what Netanyahu has done, that even if we open up that process again, which I believe, as I said, will occur if he is not prime minister, it still will not have the opportunity to succeed without a transformation of the political landscape in Israel and a transformation of American policy toward the Middle East. And I don't think either of those is going to occur.
Do you think maybe even American lawmakers at this point think maybe it's time for a change and a little less rhetoric from Israel?
I believe that if not publicly, certainly secretly, even a lot of those Republicans know that they are actually hampered by an Israeli position that requires them to take such extreme positions on a sensitive foreign policy issue.
It is going to be interesting to watch. We wait for the vote and see how things shake out. Professor Ian Lustick, a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for some very candid comments here. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, my pleasure. The American flag is revered by so many, right? What happens when one picture makes the rounds, social media, Facebook, one picture that features a veteran, features the American flag, and features another person in the picture, a focal point you would never imagine, and the firestorm that it has created, positively and negatively? We'll fill in all the details when we come back right here on MidPoint.